thank you for coming on the Fox Den podcast, Mr. Paul Domenick, at Paul M. Domenick on Twitter.
Jeremy, thank you for having me.
You got it.
To be in the Fox Den. We're in here now.
You're in it. You're in it. All right.
Do it.
I wanted to ask you how you, and I'm sure a lot of Twitter people, a lot of your followers would be interested, how you got into this passion for Stoicism and mental health and really self-help journaling stuff, because it's all really relevant and awesome.
Well, the getting into, I guess, the whole process and into Stoicism and the self-help journey I've been on for the past, 6 to 7 years. It starts with basically a funny story. And I've told it before, but it's pretty funny. So after I got out of a really bad breakup, I was just, in downtown Philadelphia one day having a drink, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go into the bookstore across the street. I was not an avid reader. I don't think I've ever completed a book up until this point. And I was about 21 years old. I've never picked up a book and completed it fully. So I walk into Barnes and Nobles one day. I'm kind of maybe a little tipsy. Like I said, I was upset and, butthurt over this whole, the breakup. And I walk into Barnes and Nobles and I'm, thinking I'm all cool, like and studious, looking around like, maybe there's some like cute girl checking me out as I peruse the bookshelves. And I'm in the self-help aisle first, and I see a book, and I see Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'm like, that's like probably by far the worst name for a book that I've ever seen, and the cheesiest. I like that. I'm just going to pick this book up real quick. And then I go to the philosophy section. I have no clue. Maybe there's a cute girl over there or something. That's why I walked over. I don't know. But I walked over there, and I'm seeing names: Marx, Foucault, Machiavelli, Nietzsche. And then I see Marcus Aurelius, and I see Seneca. I'm like, okay, I've heard of schools named Seneca before. And I see Marcus Aurelius, and I say, wait a second. This is the dude in the purple robe from the movie Gladiator, isn't it? The old dude with the white hair and the purple robe. That's awesome. I got to get this book. So I just picked it up, and I started reading it. And once I got past the first chapter, in the first chapter, he's basically like thanking various mentors and family members and grandparents for what they've done for him in his life. The second chapter, it hits you hard in the very beginning. And once I got past that first, even paragraph, I sat there and thought to myself, what the hell is going on? I almost questioned my existence and the image I've held of myself for so long, that after reading that and a few other things, I went through this whole process of trying to change myself. First of all, trying to change my self-image, and trying to address various internal issues I was dealing with, maybe some depression, anxiety, definitely anger problems. I had serious anger problems, some sadness, and just lack of fulfillment and a clear path in my life. Just that's really what it was. I mean, listen, I was going from job to job, moving from house to house, not knowing what the hell I was doing with my life. And I had no clue what I was doing. I was just failing out of school. At one point, I was extremely overweight, about 280 pounds. I had to start running. That's where the working out comes in. I had to start running. I lost 100 pounds and things like that. And now that led me here today, many years later, even teaching myself cognitive behavioral therapy and other various therapies to get over my anxieties. And I thought to myself, listen, if I found these tools and implement them in my life and, learn how to conquer my mind and even create a rich social experience for myself, whether that's making new friends, networking, meeting attractive women that I can, have fun with and maybe develop relationships with and, just live a more fulfilling life. Maybe why not share these tools with other people that were in the same position as me and help make an impact on their life. And here we are today.
Well, that is extremely fascinating. As a story goes, you were really inspired by philosophy in some unexpected ways. And tell me, if you don't mind, so you taught yourself rational emotive behavior therapy, REBT, and CBT. Had you ever considered maybe talking to someone about it, or was it something where you didn't feel comfortable talking to a shrink about it or something like that?
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel comfortable. I guess you could say there's some sort of stigma, society, says
so. Right.
Men, if you're a man and you want to ask for help, you need to learn how to deal with it on your own. And, you can't ask for help because that's weak. You can't talk to a friend about it because that's weak. And you got to learn how to just suck it up and go through it. Right. And I think there's a degree of that. There's strength in that as well as toughening up and pushing through it. But also it's not a sign of strength to not ask for help. And I mean, I forget which Stoic philosopher, I think it's Seneca. He says, like, listen, like, sometimes you do need to ask for help. If you're storming the wall with a fellow soldier and you can't scale the wall, why not ask for your fellow man who's above you to help pull you up over the wall?
Right.
And it's the same thing applies to this. And so there's a stigma, and I guess that affected me, and I didn't want to be judged by people and say he's weak, or, you know, he's this and that, or he really has problems. And, you know, so I went my own path, and I started buying maybe books on Stoicism, and that's where a lot of the roots of cognitive behavioral therapy and psychoanalysis
Absolutely.
So I started. Now, I'm not an expert in cognitive behavioral therapy or REBT and things like that, but I took little tools from each and would apply them to my anxiety and things where I felt depressed, and, you know, I'd question these negative thoughts I was having, and try to, you know, test my comfort zone and push past my comfort zone and things like that. So I wish I would have asked for help. Like, I'm not saying I needed help, like I was on like a bridge somewhere contemplating it,
right,
you know, but like I definitely could have probably talked to someone, whether it could have been a best friend, you know,
right,
even talking to a friend. And this is where journaling comes in. This is where journaling comes in, because the journaling is that friend that you need when you don't have one. And this took me down the path of journaling. Number one, part of the reason why I started journaling for managing my emotions was because the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a journal. It's a private journal. It wasn't like a book meant to be published for everyone. He would tell himself, like, listen, dude, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, listen, you screwed up again today. Like, listen, you did it again. You did what you weren't supposed to do again. We're going to try again tomorrow. You know, or he would talk to himself about his negative beliefs. Like, this is what you're thinking about. Like, why are you thinking this? Like, so that was the journal for me, became my therapist. It became that best friend whose shoulder I could lean on and express my deepest emotions and you know, receive that back. So, yeah.
Well, it's fascinating because a lot of the therapeutic community is now really going into what is helpful for men and the different genders in particular. And last year I was at a conference, and my listeners will probably remember this story, but I was at a conference, the Rocky Mountain Psych Association, RMPA, and the lady who helped to found this man therapy campaign where the guy, it's very funny commercials where the guy is talking about like beef jerky for therapy, and he's got a really kind of machismo masculine persona. He's like, did you know men have feelings too? And it's really funny. But the lady, really good stuff. I might link to a video in the description of the podcast. But one of the big key things that she discovered, she lost her own brother to suicide, so it's very near and dear to her, is why she created this campaign to avoid that happening. But there are some key elements to therapeutic interventions and approaches for men that are crucial. And one of them is humor. Another one is teaching men the skills so that they can take what they learn and then pass it on to others. And so this Stoicism approach, when you learned this stuff, you weren't content to just sit on it. You're now reaching out through Twitter. You're providing it to people. You're providing it through the journaling curriculum that you and Ryan developed together, which I'll link to in the description. You can talk more about that. But it's funny how just hearing men talk about this stuff, these points are all accurate. I think we have to get out the word that pity doesn't work for therapy for men or for anybody who has a level of pride and who isn't completely inundated with the message that it's okay to reach out, right? If you're taught that it's important to be independent, you're going to go read a book or you're going to do self-help stuff. And so I think what you said is accurate. It's amazing to teach yourself something because there's such a learning experience and a journey that comes from that you'll remember. I also think that there's a balance there where some people are hyper emotional and maybe rely too much on their feelings and get flooded by them. And then people who go the other way where it's, you know, I can't reach out at all for help. I'm an island. And we know from the 48 laws of power, one of the laws is do not make yourself an island. Do not erect because you cut yourself off. So it's a constant balancing act for men today and for women too. But from this perspective, it's kind of like I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, totally.
So talk to us more about, you talked a little about Stoicism. You talked about the origins of your Twitter channel here, but what have been let's get into that story you were going to tell me earlier before we hit record about that tweet that went viral and what your views are. Yeah.
So basically I had a tweet about 2 months ago, and the tweet said simply, antidepressants that aren't pills. and I gave a bullet point list. Some said cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mm-hmm.
sunlight exposure plus walking, and then cardio plus strength training, hanging out with friends and socializing, maybe helping people and volunteering, writing gratitude lists, journaling, things like that. And I, the reason why I wanted to get this out there, because one of the, talk about gaps in mental health system.
Yes.
There, to me, it seems there's a problem that there's an overprescription problem.
Okay.
Any type of problem you have is people want to just throw drugs at you. Here's some drugs, and things like that. Here's some pills. Now, a disclaimer, I say, like, listen, if you're prescribed something, don't stop taking something unless you consult your doctor first.
Absolutely.
Please consult your doctor or health professional first before you make any changes, to your situation. Based on, I don't want people to change what they're doing based off what I said.
Right.
But these things can be implemented alongside those things.
Right.
There's no, and so I put this tweet out there, and it went completely viral. It got almost 3.5 million views, 60,000 retweets, 30,000, likes, 400 comments, something like that.
Right.
And people were saying, you're a POS, like, you're trying to take my pills away. Like, who do you think you are? You're not a doctor, and all these things. And I had to make it and turn it into a thread saying, listen,
Right.
FYI, this tweet does not say, please don't take your pills. This tweet does not say this list is more effective than pills. I didn't say that.
Right.
But exercise has been shown to be just as effective, if not more, than antidepressants. So things like that. And I'm not saying start exercising and don't take your pills anymore. I didn't say that. But people have, almost identified with their condition so much, I feel like, that it's almost like they create this sort of self-image that's who they are.
Right.
And anything that might criticize it a little bit or say, listen, maybe you don't have to be that way, or maybe there's alternative options. People take it personally and just defend themselves. And that was part of the problem. And it's a shame that it went that way, because I had to keep commenting saying, no, listen, I'm not saying don't take your pills. I'm not saying don't consult a doctor. I didn't say any of that. I'm literally just saying, why don't you try exercising as well? If you're not already exercising and you're feeling depressed, get up and go for a nice little run. Go for a walk if it's sunny outside. Why don't you try journaling your thoughts and challenging these beliefs and thoughts that you're having? Why don't you try writing about it? Why don't you try forcing yourself and getting out there to hang out with some friends, maybe, if you can?
Right.
And then, people of course were saying, I can't get out of bed without taking my pills. My thing,
Sure.
and that's where I started firing back. I said, listen, do you get out of bed to go to the bathroom? Do you get out of the bed to go to the bathroom? Yes. Okay. I want you, draw some energy and put your shoes on and force yourself outside. That's all I'm saying. Let's try it. Let's just try it. And it went horribly. And it's a shame that the tweet had to go that way.
Sure.
Because I thought it was helpful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the mobs will come for you no matter what. There's always gonna be someone that doesn't like what you say, and that's part of the dichotomy of control, which of Stoicism is, there are things that are in your control and there are things that are not in your control. Whatever's not in your control, like people's approval, you just have to accept that's a part of this game. You're going to say things that people don't like, whether you're performing on a stage, whether you're tweeting something, whether you're writing something for a blog. You have to accept that beforehand, that people are going to criticize this and hate you and judge you just because maybe they identified with the problem that they're dealing with, and they're going to take it personally. And then you just have to accept that and not emotionally overreact or invest too much in their response. So
yeah, my view on it is, I saw the tweet, and I think if you were telling people to get off their medication or shaming people for that, that would be and
irresponsible. It would be.
Right, absolutely. And I've seen stuff like that. I've seen people post some pretty harmful things about medication when it's necessary sometimes. And I've seen things go the other way, where there's the belief that a pill can fix everything.
Yes.
And either one of those therapists try to shy away from. And I'm speaking for my field because I know a lot of other therapists. And let's get to the point. A lot of therapists will say, go outside, try to exercise, do something, start with one step toward what we call positive coping skills. Because if you're just taking medication and you don't want to do anything else different, there's really no room for therapy or self-help because you don't want to change any patterns. And I'm not commenting morally on that one way or another. I'm just saying, literally, if you're on Twitter and following someone or looking at someone who's sharing self-help habits, expect them to be sharing something that is about a habit and not a pill, because that's not your forte. It's not my forte. I work to help people discover coping skills that work for them. And we know scientifically, evidence shows exercise helps with mood. Volunteering helps with mood. How do we know that? Researchers studied the effects of exercise and volunteering on depression. And writing. Absolutely. Of course, we'll dedicate a lot to therapeutic journaling, because
and here's the deal. When I see pills, and people are going to take this the wrong way, and I don't want to pill shame anyone. I'm literally trying to help people get over these things. I'm trying to help people conquer their mind.
Absolutely.
So when I see pills as a prescription form for something like depression or anxiety or whatever the cause is or the problem is, I see a bleeding wound, and I see the pill being a Band-Aid or the gauze stopping the bleeding. It stops the bleeding, but it doesn't heal the wound. Once you take that away, you'll continue to bleed. CBT, REBT, these are tools that heal the wound or help delay the bleeding. It almost like helps you scab over the wound and heal. But the pill to me, people are going to take it the wrong way, like I said, but it's just a Band-Aid. It doesn't help heal the wound.
I've seen it go either way with clients, where I've had some who don't want to take any medication because they were so shamed and taught to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And I've used the metaphor of a car that needs a jump start, and then you jump start it, and then you take it somewhere from there, and you give it the energy necessary to get started again, or you do some mechanical work on it, and then you're driving your mind where you want it to go after the pills have helped. But no matter your beliefs about medication, whether you take it or not, whether you're for it or not, medication alone, we know, and again, I'm going to stand on research here, medication alone is not as effective as psychotherapy and medication.
Yes.
Both of those, the integrated approach that, thank God, the mental health system is really going toward now, we know that that's most effective. And if anyone identifies with their depression or anxiety to a point where they use it to define themselves, I would say that's defining yourself by any other kind of injury, where if you want to talk about your success overcoming anxiety, depression, go for it. That's amazing. But focusing on a negative rather than focusing on what you do in spite of and what you're doing today, what you're doing, like when you share, what 3 things do you want to accomplish today? Focusing your mind on something positive is so much better than saying what I don't want to do. What don't I want? Well, you're still thinking about the thing you don't want. It's like, don't think about an elephant. It's a thought experiment. You have to focus on what you want. And I think your tweet was getting to that. And I understand that people would misinterpret it.
Yeah.
But because you have a refreshingly blunt way of speaking, but I do not think that in any way you were endorsing people to get off their meds, which you're right. I'm glad you hit that. That can be dangerous.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It would be completely irresponsible of me to say, listen, I don't know who you are or what your condition is. Stop
taking the Zoloft. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. All I'm saying is I know exercising helps. I know journaling helps. I know expressing gratitude and hanging out with friends. I know these things help. So if you're taking medicine, try these things in supplementation, supplement these things with your medication. Now let's see what happens. You know what I'm saying? Maybe this could do it. Let's try that.
Sure. And there's a loneliness epidemic.
Yeah.
That's been written about.
The more socially connected we become, the more lonely we are. That's interesting too.
It is interesting. And I think it's because the more we take it for granted. If a friend is at your fingertips and you can always hang out with them, you can procrastinate it easier.
So I like to say that we're in the beginning of a communication crisis. And
that's comforting. But
people say, what the hell is a communication crisis? I say, listen, go out to eat. I've worked in the hospitality industry for, 10 plus years.
Right.
I'm a student and I still work in hospitality part-time. And it's interesting. You see people go out to any restaurant. I'm sure you've seen it that last time you were in a restaurant. Yep. Entire families are having dinner on their cell phones.
Yes.
You see people are on dates and they're looking at their phones. You see a mom and dad that has no clue who their children are because all the kid does is play video games and go on Snapchat, for the entire time or duration that they're together. And the parents say, that's okay. And the parents are on Facebook. You have no clue what your children are going through. You have no clue what little wins and successes they're having. Are you reinforcing these wins? Are you helping them, inspiring them in any way?
Absolutely. No, I hear you on that. I think that being connected to people in a digital space outside of those directly at your literal table is what's pushing people apart. It's an influx and an overflow of superficial communication at the expense of that depth contact, that syncing of right brain to right brain connection there, of in-person reading facial expressions, things of that nature that are more right brain than left brain.
Yeah.
And I've seen, like at Olive Garden a few years ago, I saw a couple that was sitting there and they both had headphones in. And that was like the zenith, the height, the apex to me of obnoxious behavior. And I thought, well, to each their own to an extent. And then now I think, well, to each their own can sometimes become an adoption of behavior that everyone decides on. There's a book called iGen, IGEN, that people should check out. It talks about like the internet generation, iGen for iGeneration.
Okay.
People don't hang out at malls. They don't go. I mean, you used to see these sitcoms in the 90s. I was really young when they were out. But even still, I mean, you'd see these sitcoms where early 90s, late 80s culture was the teenagers walking around talking crap about their parents at the mall, hanging out with their teenagers. It's like, that's dead. You got click on Amazon, hit Snapchat. Maybe go to the mall if you need some ideas on what to order for Amazon, right? Go to Best Buy if you need some ideas for what to, and that's, I'm not commenting on the economics of it. I'm commenting on the fact that it becomes so quarantined, our little sites, little boxes that we hit to order stuff. The process is gone and it's all the product.
Yeah. So even there's a mall by my house. You have people going to a mall.
Right.
You lock themselves in a virtual reality machine or whatever the hell it is. They put these headphones on or these headsets on, all this, and they lock themselves in this little bubble, and they're going into a different world inside of the mall. It's like, to me, that's craziness.
Yeah.
To me, that's craziness. And all their friends are going. They're not talking. They're just going there, locking these machines, put the visors over their face and the headphones on, and they lock into it's craziness.
Ready Player One, here we come.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like that, except, I mean, that's more of a collaborative best case scenario for digital cultures. Like, let's collaborate and build something together. And even though we don't look like ourselves in real life, we're still having authentic connection. That's kind of the hope for pushing on through the other side. And that's more of a meta-modern perspective than a postmodern perspective. Like, meta-modernism embraces kind of the things that were once deconstructed, we're kind of reconstructing again. So there's some positivity to that, but not when everything's so isolated in your own virtual world's not connected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, Baudrillard, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I mean, a lot of these young people aren't learning any skills. They're not learning soft skills. They're not learning how to self-motivate. They're not learning how to, to create their own sort of sense of self-confidence. They're not learning leadership skills or how to network or how to work with other people and teamwork. So that's going to be the superpower of the future are going to be soft skills. It's going to be communication skills. And recruiters are already, they're preferring people with soft skills who have soft skills and technical skills over the technical skills, or they would rather have someone with just the soft skills because they can be taught technical skills. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like, it's like a no-brainer, man.
Well, it's easier to learn good communication skills than it is to unlearn bad ones. And I know that from my brief stint doing couples therapy, which couples therapy is okay. If either party is not as committed as the other, it's a slog. That's the truth. You got to have good communication on both ends. But it's interesting to hear you say that because I think you and Armani say that kind of stuff. I interviewed him before.
He's awesome. Armani's the man.
He is. He's
the man. He's the man.
He's funny. He's funny and he's poignant. It's a good combination, such as yourself. I think the best Twitter personalities have some depth to them where, they deliver some truth grenades, but with a smile. And I think people are coming to that because they're not getting things that they need out of the therapeutic world. I mean, you see therapists as the joke in the meme. So like this face tree can't hurt you. And it's face tree right there. I mean, it's like the therapists are the agents of just shut up, nothing can hurt you, invalidating. It's like, I don't blame people for seeing it that way. Not after the stories I've heard about people going to therapy being shamed or being basically told to open up to everyone. There's some people you can't trust. And I think therapists can err on the side of equipping people to go out and emote to everyone rather than saying, and just because we tend to be very positive, right? Which is a great thing. But when you get, and we'll segue into, you talked about, you like to sometimes joke and say, I don't like what I'm seeing. Cut out the BS. Like some people really crave that because they don't know where else they're going to get it, where else they're going to get any honesty.
Listen, man, I'm a firm believer in just sometimes there has to be blunt truth, blunt honesty. And
I'm from the South. I come from that side.
Listen, man, what am I going to sit there? If I was 280 pounds, what am I going to sit there and be like, no, you're not fat. You're okay. It's all right. it's okay, body positive. Listen, dude, like I'm basically obese at this point. I'm on a track, for heart disease or cardiovascular disease and other health complications. I need to take care of this right now because I'm fat. I'm not healthy. Like, I need to take care of this. I need to be honest with myself. And once I'm honest with myself, it's like almost, getting over an addiction. The first step is really recognizing that there's a problem. You have to recognize there's an addiction.
That's the truth.
It's the case with overcoming any of your faults. Do I have anxiety? I'm not going to act like I don't have anxiety or, maybe depression or any of those other things. I have to acknowledge, okay, I'm dealing with something right now. That's the first step. Let's acknowledge that we have a problem here.
Right.
And this, step number 2 is, okay, let's take steps to improve that problem or solve that problem. Solve that problem. So, and that's the issue. It's like it's okay if you're, dealing with some issues in your life, whether you just failed out of school, you're going through some problems. Don't act like they don't exist. Don't avoid. Yeah, don't avoid and try to numb your problems going out every weekend and drinking and, doing scandalous things and trying to avoid your problems. Sometimes you got to sit there and say, listen, man, I'm a little effed up. Like, I got some issues right now. But it's okay because I'm going to take steps to deal with them now. I'm not going to run and, have all these distractive, methods and, like I said, go out every weekend, hang out with friends and do drugs and drink and wash everything down, act like it doesn't exist. I have to take care of these problems.
Right. So it's don't go and repress things in our culture of distractibility, which provides more than ample distractions to bury emotions. And I love that. That's a great segue because one of your tweets that I like said, the common reaction most people have towards their fears and anxieties is to run away.
Yeah.
The more you avoid what you're afraid of, the worse it gets. Well, and that's the basis of agoraphobia. You end up being afraid of going outside your literal door. And I'm not making fun of it. It's absolutely terrifying and unbelievably unfortunate. And avoiding things perpetually leads to that sort of just wholesale rejection of reality and engagement.
Yeah. So I have a little story to tell about that, actually.
All right.
About avoiding your, actually, give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
This will be a good time to remind listeners.
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
My dog was scratching at the door and trying to get out. So here's the deal. So when I was in college or in community college, back where I was living, let's say about 6 years ago, this is when I got out of the relationship. I noticed I developed a severe form of anxiety to the point where I wasn't agoraphobic, but I would have to leave class. I would have to leave my class because I thought I was going to faint. I had this weird fear of fainting.
Sure.
And I would leave my class. I even dropped all of my classes one semester because I was so scared to go to class. And I took all Fs. And when I say I dropped my classes, I didn't actually drop them. I just stopped going.
Right.
So I just stopped going to all my classes, and I would avoid classes. I would avoid social interactions. I would avoid, going out to bars and clubs and coffee shops with my friends because I had this weird fear that I was going to faint, and it turned into almost panic attacks and anxiety. So I would just stop going out sometimes. Now, the problem was I was avoiding the cause of my anxiety, but the cause of my anxiety was just this what if thought, this irrational thought. What if you faint? What if you pass out in front of all your friends? And first of all, the problem is you can't cope with a future situation that never happened.
Right.
You can't cope with the what if. You cannot. But you can. The thing is, part of that is becoming more present and mindful is one of the things that helped me. But when I had these what if thoughts, I said, listen, man, what if it does happen? What if it does happen? What am I going to do? And faint? All right, then I faint and I wake right up. I wake up and I get back to business. So instead of avoiding all these things I was afraid of, I just started going and facing them. A little bit of exposure therapy, I guess you could call it.
I would call it that. That's amazing. So that's what I want to get to as well is I work with clients using a technique called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's not virtual like with a headset or anything, but I have clients think about, that would be cool. But some people do that actually. But I have clients think about in the office, obviously not at home alone, but think about thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and images associated with whatever traumatic event they endured.
Yeah.
And they focus on it while also noticing hand movement going back and forth. So it's not hypnotism. It's actually, if anything, it's being ultra alert. But people recognize, wait a minute, their brain gets oriented to the present because they have something distracting, interfering with that negative memory. So they realize they're thinking basically, what if it does happen? And they realize it's not the end of the world. And that's the key to riding out anxiety is recognizing it's going to peak, it's going to drop. You may have a panic attack. Okay, let your therapist know. Don't do heavy trauma work unsupervised without a therapist. But when you notice that the anxiety itself can't kill you and that a panic attack feels like you're having a heart attack or whatever, but that it's a subjective feeling, I know it's tough. It's terrible. But when you realize that, you have power over your emotions then. And the paradox is you're powerful over your emotions when you don't fear them, when you know that there's an end to them and that they're just sometimes really hyperactive smoke alarms, smoke detectors that keep going off when there's no smoke or no danger. And by the way, fearing a fainting spell is actually a very surprisingly common thing that people fear. I think it gets to that loss of control phobia that a lot of people have. It's very common.
Well, it was interesting because that fear of fainting started like when I was in high school. I was having a party with my friends in my house, and we were hanging out, partying, doing some things, and out of nowhere, I just blacked out and I fainted. And I like hit my head on a lamp and I fell on the ground. And I woke up completely disoriented and had no clue what happened. I was like, what the hell just happened? And my friends were like freaked out and I panicked and things like that. So from that point, I would always think when I was around a group of people that, man, what if that happens again?
Right.
And I would start to freak out and I would start to just energize this and fuel this negative thought process. And my heart rate would go and I would start sweating and getting, I would start getting a little clammy. And I would start looking for escape routes and exits. And, I would leave. And you think, here's the craziest part, Jeremy, when you leave, you think it's over. Like, oh man, thank God I got out.
Right.
You created an effing monster, what you just did. You created a monster when you left.
Right.
Because now it's only going to say, oh man, it said that was real. It said that threat was real.
Right. It reinforces the fear. You're absolutely right. It sends your brain.
Validates it.
Yeah. Yeah. And wow, what did you faint over the first time, if you don't mind me asking? Would you just not get enough oxygen or was it partying?
Yeah, there was some partying, if you know what I mean. And there definitely wasn't enough. I guess it was a tight room, a lot of people. I'm not claustrophobic or anything, but there's a lot of smoke in the air.
Oh boy.
I guess I hyperventilated.
Yep.
Maybe I had an anxiety attack and I didn't know what it was, and I hyperventilated to the point where I just passed out. I'm thinking that's what it was. I was probably dehydrated too. But like I said, from then on, any type of social interaction where there's a lot of people, and it didn't help that having asthma too with anxiety. I would start to say, oh man, like it's happening again. What if it happens? What if they see me faint? What if they see me faint? And here's a key part. I hope a lot of people catch this point. Is that people stop on this what if part and don't play the movie forward. They stop the movie right here and they say, what if? What if?
Yes.
And it plays on loop. And you stay there, what if? Oh my God, what if it happens? You keep saying this visualization like, I'm fainting. But you never say, okay, what happens after the faint? Let's play the movie. What happens after the faint? Okay. You get up, your friends say, oh, are you okay? What's going on? Maybe you should go to the hospital. You're all right. And, you drink some water and you're on your way. No, people don't play the movie going forward. They stop and they create this little negative feedback loop. And that just fuels and energizes the anxiety in the moment and the panic.
Wow. That is an extremely nuanced clinical perspective of fueling avoidance symptoms right there. So I know you said as a disclaimer, right, you don't have an education in the mental health field. I think you have some real self-taught mastery here, though, because you're right. The worst part of avoidance symptoms is the reinforcement of avoidance that you get when you leave a situation. And you're right. So trauma tends to get, and anxiety to a lesser extent, obviously, they kind of work the same way, tends to get trapped in the body as a fear of some immediate thing happening. And sometimes it comes down to people fear this thing happening and that's it, because in a very macabre sort of gruesome fashion, they fear like that's death. That's it. That's proverbially or literally they're dead from it. But then if they come at that from a perspective of, well, if I faint, I'm not dead. What happens after that? You're right. So when processing trauma with clients, when reprocessing it, I have them imagine going through it like that's a future template. And I notice you do that to a smaller extent there on Twitter. You have people imagine what could happen that's an unintended or negative result of something I want to do, and then what do I do going through that. So this actually gets into some of your recent tweets that I saw of focus on what could happen negative and actually, okay, don't ruminate on it, but think about what you could do.
So in Latin, it's called premeditatio malorum. It's a ancient Stoic exercise. It literally means the premeditation of evils or negatives. So basically, you would sit there and you could do it in the beginning of your day, whether you have a bunch of goals lined up or you're going to work or whatever you have planned going on through the day or for the month, for the year, whatever it is. So you sit there and you simply visualize, maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe you're going for a morning walk, you visualize, and you think about things that you want to get done throughout the day, and you visualize them going terribly wrong. And there's two things you do here. You visualize them going terribly wrong, and you accept it ahead of time. And I'll explain why in a second. And then also you visualize, you see it going wrong, it becoming an obstacle, and you visualize yourself overcoming it. You picture in your head, okay, if this goes wrong, if it happens like this and it doesn't go my way, how can I respond in that moment to counteract the negative aspect of it? And okay, now you start to develop an action plan, and it's like military strategy. You're developing an action plan way ahead of time to a potential outcome or a potential situation, and how to, overcome this obstacle and challenge in a way that's in your favor. And this is all going on in your head, dude. It's like complete military strategy. It's crazy. But the thing with visualizing the negative over and over again, especially your fears and anxieties, is that I always explain it like this. Picture your a horror movie that really terrified you when you were a kid, or maybe it still does. Now, if you watch it once, and the scary parts where the guy pops out or the zombie appears and whatever, you jump, you get scared, whatnot. Okay, watch that movie 40 times. Are you still going to get scared when that scary part happens? No, because you've seen it happen you've already seen it happen 40, 50 times already. So it's the same thing with the negatives. If you visualize over and over again, you see it happen, it's potential, this potential challenge on my face, or my fear, here's my anxiety. You see it over and over and over again, and you desensitize yourself. You desensitize yourself from this fear. And I don't want this word I'm about to use. It's not a good word, but you almost numb yourself to that thing you fear. Right. And it's an interesting mind exercise to go through, especially if no one's ever experimented. And it's crazy that these guys were doing it 2,000 years ago. It makes sense, though, the things they were dealing with, whether it's famine, war. You were lucky if you made it to age 13 back then, or if you did, you're probably going to find yourself in the gladiator games or something. So they have to picture these things ahead of time in order to remain, emotionally in control and not, cloud their judgment and, things like that.
Right. So you're essentially describing habituation, or the idea that a stimulus does not exert any more power to cause you anxiety. And I think for many people, can't underscore that enough, that's going to be an absolutely awesome coping skill. I think for people with more severe trauma, obviously, they can kind of keep re-traumatizing themselves and being drawn to situations that aren't good, and that deserves clinical attention. However, for day-to-day things and for the sort of tasks, of phobic stuff, of speech anxiety, I know Armani talked a lot about his speech anxiety. That's his big thing, is discussing what it was like to overcome that. And for you, you're talking about after a bad breakup and finding stoicism and what that was like with anxiety. I think the key thing there is it's finding a rite of passage, finding something to desensitize these universal human fears.
Yeah. And I think REBT and CBT, they both tackle anxiety in a different way, though, two different approaches. And they're very similar. One says, okay, where's the evidence for this belief that you have? Like, where's the evidence? And then REBT comes in and says, okay, so what if it does happen? Then what? So
great.
It's interesting because you can use both. At the same time, because say if you do conjure up some, okay, here's why I believe this. Okay, so you may have beaten this therapy. Let's say you beat it for a second. Let's break out the other toolkit. You say, okay, what if it does happen? Then what? Are you going to die? Is it the end of the world? If it's not the end of the world, it's okay. Accept it. Move forward. But don't resist it. Don't resist it. Almost be with it. You know what I'm saying? Just watch it. And I'll give one question that really helped me. I don't want to say eliminate my anxiety, because I don't think you completely eliminate it. I think you, in my opinion, overcome it, and you learn how to manage it, and
Sure.
basically, like, build up wins over it to the
Right.
point where you don't have to worry about losing in the future.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good way
Absolutely.
of saying it.
Okay.
I always ask myself, what problem am I facing right now? Not 5
Okay.
minutes from now, not 10 minutes from now, not a year, not a month from now. What problem am I facing right now? And I just focus on that. And I say, well, nothing. I'm not facing any problem right now. 10 minutes from now, I might be thinking, oh my God, what if I faint? Well, that's not a problem I'm facing right now. The problem I'm facing right now, there is nothing. That's what if in 10 minutes from now. That doesn't count. It's not real.
Right.
There is no 10 minutes from now. There's only right now. You know what I'm saying? There is no 10 minutes from now.
That's from radical mindfulness.
Yeah, we're only living in right now.
Yes.
So, and a lot of the anxiety stems from lack of presence. It really does. Think about it.
Absolutely.
Think about it.
Yeah. Well, anxiety, living in the future, what ifs, depression, living in the past, what you did wrong, or how you're shameful with evidence from the past. It's both of those are really just different directions of the same sort of crowded, overthinking mentality and phenomena there. And so that radical mindfulness approach of focusing on right now and what you can be doing in the present, that is so helpful. And we as a Western culture really took that from the East, from meditation, from Buddhism, just like we took from the ancient Western tradition the idea of Stoicism and using that for CBT. So it's funny that psychology's taken the best from the East and the West and really redubbed it for its own purposes. But mindfulness is an increasingly necessary skill, and it just means being present, focused, and non-judgmental on what's going on. It's increasingly important in a world that's mindless, in the way of you're constantly pulled into distractions, pulled into ways to avoid the present experience and emotion, to the point that you can forget how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Wow. Excellent way of looking at it, of what's going on right now. No danger right now in the present. That's a great reframe.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it for a second. It's because, like, how often do you think you're present throughout the day? How often are you completely submerged in this moment?
Right.
Think about it like this: the past, when it happened, it unfolded in the now, and the future, when it happens in the now.
Right.
It's always a little bit radical. It's like there is no past or real future. Everything happens now.
Right.
So it's weird when you think about it, but how often do you actually think you're being present and mindful throughout the day? When you're washing dishes, you're probably thinking about, the bills you got to pay and this and that. And when you're driving your car, you're thinking about that meeting. And, how often do you go for a walk and just literally just try to, like, count the leaves on the tree, or count the trees, or focus on the wind and things like that. And, how the ground feels beneath your feet. You can't focus on anything else if you're completely in the present moment. There is no anxiety that exists when you're mindful, when you're in the present moment. It does not exist.
Right. I mean, that's why mindfulness-based approaches are so popular in psychotherapy now, and it's why they'll probably be on the forefront for a long time in some form or another. I mean, when I taught an anger management group, we focused on mindfulness. We focused on what will it help you to express this? What will it help you to, in extreme cases, do something to break parole or probation when arguing with someone and getting into road rage? What does it benefit you to prove your honor to someone who doesn't know you? How much better to focus on some kind of meditative music or some kind of habits just in the moment to stave off that anger, or to stave off and delay the addiction impulse, right? So, like, doing this on hard mode is trying to use it to overcome a cigarette addiction of, okay, I want to have some nicotine right now. What if I delay that urge by 30 seconds and I do some mindful breathing and I really, really, really overcome it and ride out? Like, urge surfing is a term used when trying to conquer addiction through mindfulness, because you really are riding out an urge. So, it's a great conversation. I'm glad you're out there giving it to people in a way that is helpful on Twitter and that gets people more interested in maybe doing a deep dive with it.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I do agree.
You shared a Media Conquistadors box breathing.
Yes.
You want to explore that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do this multiple times a day. Refresh my mind.
There you go.
The box breathing technique. It's a lot of the SEALs and military professionals use it. So basically, it's a simple 4x4x4x4 technique. And to start it, you basically exhale, a deep exhale, clear the lungs. You're breathing from your belly. You inhale for 4 seconds, pause and hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, a little bit longer, delay it a little bit, and then pause for 4 seconds. And you repeat this maybe 10, 15 times. And the entire time you're focusing on your breath. Now, if thoughts come in and if thoughts come in and tend to distract you a little bit, it's okay. Like, don't try to attach yourself to the thought. Just don't identify with it. Just watch it and return your focus back to your breathing. But it's a very, very beneficial exercise, and engaging your parasympathetic nervous system and calming you down, whether you're experiencing anxiety or stressful thoughts or anger, any negative emotions like that. You could use this really any breathing technique, but box breathing definitely helps me, especially when I'm a little stressed out or feeling a little pissed off and whatnot. I try to do this multiple times a day. First thing in the morning while I'm in the shower, I do box breathing for 10 minutes.
Well, I love that you bring up the neuroscience of it too, and just the physical science. So it calms down the parasympathetic nervous system, which engages our brain to recognize that we're safe, because through our body, our bottom-up processing, the signals we get from the parasympathetic nervous system up through our vagus nerve into our brain, that lets us know, wait a minute, we're safe. And so there's that feedback loop, that constant feedback loop between our limbic system, I should say among, because it's more than two parts. It's our frontal lobe, our limbic system, our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous systems, all engaging. And that's why these body hacks, these breathing hacks work so well with our mental function. If there's one thing I wish people would take away from current psychotherapy trends and self-help trends, is the body and the brain are inextricably linked. And if you try to affect one without the other, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny. This is interesting to bring that up. I remember my father always told me as a kid, he would always say, it's funny, but it makes sense. He would always say, like, keep your mind sharp like a razor and your body strong like a machine. Mind and body, mind and body. He always tell me mind and body. Get your body right, get your mind right. And I never understood that until I started working out. And you couple that with various therapies and deep breathing and mindset shifts and new perspectives and stuff like that. And plus the working out, I mean, you'll become unstoppable. You'll become completely unstoppable.
Absolutely. And those tips alone are so helpful to people. So I want to switch gears here for a minute. I love that you posted the question, what 3 people would you meet alive or dead? Because I actually like to ask that a lot of my guests. And so I want to kind of rewind here and ask you, because I like to ask it at the beginning of the interview. I don't even know how many times I've actually done that, but because I get engaged and sucked into these amazing conversations. But who would you meet and forgive me if I didn't see it on Twitter, but who would you meet for your 3 people alive or dead? I can make some guesses, I think.
Good question. This is a good question.
It's a great opening.
Here, I'm going to pose another question to you. Can they be fictional?
You know what? This interview is going really well. Let's just do it. I'm sure you'll have some good ones here.
Okay. My top 3, I think, would be Marcus Aurelius being number 1.
I guess that. Okay.
I would love to sit down and have a conversation with the dead emperor. Number 2 would be a fictional character.
Okay.
Howard Rourke from The Fountainhead.
Oh, boy. Wow. We're getting some objectivism up in here. Okay.
I would love to have a conversation with Howard Rourke. And number 3, this is a good one. This is a tough one.
Okay.
Let me see. Who would I like to have a conversation? You know what? It'd probably be Dale Carnegie. It would be either between Dale Carnegie or Seneca. Either one.
Okay. Right. Wow. No, those are some good picks, man.
How about you?
I've never answered that on the air. I'll go for it, though.
It's your time, Jeremy.
Yeah, whatever. I'm in a good mood. I'll allow the cross-examination here. So I would want to meet Freud.
Okay.
And I would want to talk to him about the mistranslations that his work was probably bound to undergo. And he also had a theory of love that he didn't get to really work on, that he got from what I'm aware of. I would want to meet Christ because and a lot of guests have picked him before, because you would want to go behind the scenes with him. I grew up in a Christian community, so it would be really good to get that. And for a third one, that is such a good question. Let's see. Let's say Buddha, because Yeah, because of his focus on mind. I'd love to go back and ask him some hard-hitting questions about mindfulness and about things and see just how
Yeah.
accurate we are with our understanding of where he was going with things, because you get so far from the original sources
Yeah.
that you can become detached from it in a way, no pun intended with the detachment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
I think, for me to be able to meet, like, let's say Seneca, I would
Yeah.
love to ask him what it was like to be like, maybe not any real philosophical questions. I would just want to know what it'd be like to, number one, he was basically like a billionaire at his time, for his time period. Maybe some business mindset tips you can give. And number two, I would want to know what it was like to work as an advisor to Emperor Nero. Like,
Right. Yeah,
complete
boy.
psychopath. Because
Talk
he was
about
in a bad
Nero.
situation, dude. If you think about it, like, he was not allowed to leave. Like, he had to be. He was basically his chief of staff for Nero. Like, he was not allowed to leave, and if he did leave, he would be killed. And now, if he stayed, he would have to partake and almost abandon his Stoic principles in order to agree with Nero. Let's say, "Oh, Nero, you want to go kill your mom? I can't really disagree with you here, because if not, you'll kill me." But then
Right.
Socrates probably would have told him, "Listen, man, you got to stand up for what you believe in. If you die, you die, basically. But
Yeah.
don't abandon your principles to just
Live another day.
live another day." Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Heady conversation here. I mean, you see that kind of now. Yeah, the relationship between government and philosophy, it's a tenuous one. Plato and his idea of philosopher kings is good. He'd be a good fourth pick for a person to meet, because this idea of he really thought out the Republic and his ideas on governance, and you can kind of see sometimes what may have led him to think that you need an informed ruling
Yeah.
class.
Three people is not enough.
Not
It's
if you
really
have
not.
not if you have a big imagination.
Yeah. I like this one. There's one mindset shift, or this one exercise you could do. It's creating a council, like a dead council.
Yes, I've done.
So,
Yes, that's
and they don't all have to be dead. They don't have to be dead. But,
no.
like, I like to have like almost like a fitness advisor. My fitness advisor would probably be David Goggins. I like to have him.
Of
Like
course, it would be Joe
hell
Rogan.
yeah, hell yeah. I have Seneca up there, Marcus Aurelius. I have Cicero. I have everyone up there, and exactly, yeah, that's it.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
And if you really think about it, you can use this imaginary council. What advice do you need? What do you want to learn? Do you want to know if you should go to the gym today? Okay, go ahead. You can ask David Goggins in your head if you know him well enough from his readings and from his interviews.
Right.
And imagine what he would tell you. Imagine what Marcus Aurelius would tell you to do in this situation. Contemplate. I think it's Donald Robertson in his book How to Think Like a Roman Emperor.
Yeah.
He says contemplate the sage. Contemplate the sage. Okay, what would Marcus Aurelius do? What would Socrates do in this situation? Would he say run away and hide, or would he say confront your fear here, confront your anxiety? What's going on? Stay and fight it. Think about it differently.
Well, and it gets into this idea of ego states, or different parts of our personality where we're thinking from a different or originating point. So it's really us thinking in the frame of those advisors, and that's why we have to know their work well enough. We kind of know what they would say. It's the idea of an introject, too, of an internalized external perspective. It's why parenting is so important, by the way. If we're taught by our parents to generally feel that the world is trustworthy as long as we're not naive and we make best decisions, but things make sense, that's so much more helpful than being taught to be naively trusting, or to be so untrusting and believe the world's going to hurt you at every turn, right? And so you get, sometimes with clients I work with, they didn't have any voice of reason, literally any parent who was speaking reason in their lives. So you have to construct that, right? I would say reconstruct, but if it's not there, you're doing it for the first time. So I love the inner counsel exercise. It's a beautiful way to start making that positive thinking second nature in a fun way, with kind of a mascot form.
Yeah, and this even applies to finding mentorship and things like that. There's a quote by Seneca. He says, listen, you can't choose your parents, but you can choose children you'll become.
Sure.
And that quote, that's powerful to me. I mean, listen, you might have came from a bad situation. You never know what the hell people go through and where they come from. But listen, just because you came from this bad situation, you might have terrible parents, maybe you didn't have parents at all. You could still choose whose children you become. You could still learn from mentors, even if they're not in the physical form, like you're going to a coffee shop to meet with a mentor. You could have a digital mentor. You could learn from books. You could learn from, philosophers who lived 2,000 years ago. All these resources can act like mentors to you because they have a lot of the answers that you need to, to the problems that you're having. A lot of these people have the answers that you need. It doesn't matter, what time period they lived in and whatnot. Like, I can't tell you how many things I learned from Stoic philosophers, from Nietzsche, from all these people that aren't alive anymore. They have the answers. They don't have to be alive to give you answers. You don't have to, you don't have to seek someone that's alive to, provide answers to your problems.
Absolutely
right now.
Not. Absolutely not.
It's definitely helpful to be able to engage in some sort of dialogue with a person that's still alive,
Sure.
like an actual living, breathing mentor. But if you don't have it, there are plenty of other resources. So.
Yes. Let's talk about for a minute. I want to give you the full floor to talk about your journaling curriculum with Ryan and go over all of that, because this is going to be kind of a good lead off into plugging your products, because I absolutely love that you're so invested in therapeutic journaling. You clearly do your stuff with Stoicism and journaling. Yeah.
So basically the reason why I started journaling, I'm not sure how long Ryan's been journaling. I'm sure it's been quite a long time. But I started journaling after I read Meditations because, one, I was like, wow, the former emperor of Rome journaled every day.
Mm-hmm.
It must have helped him in some form. I have a ton of problems right now. Why don't I just start journaling? I didn't know what the hell to write about. So I would literally just sit there and be like, I don't know what to write about, so I'm just going to keep writing things. And all right. And then after doing that for a few pages, I seen all these different weird thoughts and ideas starting to spring out. Once I got past that initial blockage of like, I don't know what to write.
Right.
And I would just get really creative and just start throwing all, various ideas on paper. So after doing that for a while, I started looking for ways to basically alleviate anxiety and stress. And after learning that writing and journaling acts as that friend that you need to talk to. And people say, listen, I don't have someone to talk to. I don't have a therapist. I don't have a best friend to talk to for my problems, that would really help me. You have a journal. You have a notebook. That is that shoulder to lean on. That is the person. It will always listen to you. It will always listen to you. It won't judge you. You could write out anything you want in that book on that paper, and it will absorb it, and it will clear your head, and it will listen to you. And I started gaining tons of different benefits from it, whether it was when I was setting goals, trying to be more creative, trying to be more productive, get things done, alleviate stress, definitely anger problems, alleviating anger, writing about my anger. Why am I feeling anger? Why am I feeling angry right now? Writing my negative beliefs down, creating it, whether it was creating a new positive self-image for myself. Various aspects of my life, I was writing every day for it. And I still write. Listen, I still write for stress. I still write for anger. Whatever I'm feeling a little anxious and whatnot, I still write about it. I do it every day. I'm not going to act like this dude that's like, I don't experience any of these emotions anymore because I'm perfect and that's it. No, I journal every day. I still I use this Tim Ferriss exercise sometimes. And he likes to just complain, and he might spend 5 minutes in the morning just complaining on paper. He's letting it all out. He's draining.
Morning pages.
Exactly.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Julia Cameron, that she originated that, and then Tim Ferriss.
The Artist's Way. Yeah, The Artist's Way.
Beautiful. Yes.
And I include an exercise in there in the journaling ebook called Stream of Consciousness. It's Julia Cameron. So I started improving my life once I started writing, to be honest with you. And in our ebook, me and Path to Manliness, we basically cover everything you need, whether it's finding a good writing environment, what type of notebook do you want to do. And if people say, oh, I can just get any notebook, you can. But you also want to have a notebook that you feel comfortable with. It's creative. Like, I'll show you my journaling notebook. It has PMD there as my initials. And watch why I unwrap this bad boy. Look at the quote in the first. I have a quote in here. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, what stands in the way becomes the way, by Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, what stands in the way
becomes the way.
The way. And then there's the obstacle is the way by Ryan Holiday. Yeah.
And listen, I draw on here. I do everything.
Beautiful. This is why people go to the YouTube channel of the Fox Den, and you'll get to see this beautiful leather-bound journal that's sparkling before our eyes.
Yeah, and actually in the journaling ebook, The Path to Journaling, I included a link. It's not an affiliate link. I'm not trying to make money off it or anything.
Sure.
But at Etsy, they you can go and customize your own notebook. So I had my name on it. I had my my name with the year on it and everything. I wrote it in Sharpie, but you can customize with quotes and initials, whatever you want.
Beautiful.
And so when the first time I opened that page, I see what stands in the way becomes the way. And
Yes.
so it's a reminder every single time. But I do highly recommend everyone getting into journaling. If you do decide to pick up the Path to Journaling ebook on my page, or you can get a Path to Mailing List page, you'll learn how to set goals. You'll learn how to manage your emotions, decrease stress. You'll learn actually how to find out who you are. There's over 150 prompts and questions in there designed to really dive deep past I want to hear, they're designed to discover the meta goals and the meta intentions you have for your life and what you really want to do. Not just what you tell everyone, I want to do this and I want to do that. It dives deeper. Why? What's that going to do for you?
Yes.
How will that make you feel? What are the consequences of that?
Yes. Go to the bedrock of your intention. Yes.
We go deep. And that's why I say, listen, even in the managing emotion section,
right?
You might start crying. You might start crying when you start answering these questions. Because I want to know, okay, what traumatic experience, what's your most traumatic experience from childhood?
Wow.
How does that affect you still today? Let's talk about it. And I have questions designed in there to, help you get over these past traumatic experiences, as well as design a more beneficial future for yourself. So you can definitely pick that book up. It's awesome. It's only like $19, and you get 2 mini ebooks in there. You get Path to Mailing List journaling ebook, and you get my ebook. So it's really good stuff, and be getting a lot of good feedback on it. So definitely, and there's a lot of Stoic exercises in there too. A lot of Stoic journaling exercises.
Well, and I would say also that was a great recommendation you gave for how to think like a Roman emperor, the Stoic philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. And it's $15 on Amazon, by the way, to everyone out there. And it's got 47 reviews. It's unbelievable. It's 5 full stars. I mean, it's got such good review.
Like Donald Robertson, yeah.
Yes.
Listen, it's an excellent read. I highly, highly recommend it. It dives deep into Marcus Aurelius' childhood, his teenage years, and it basically shows you what he was going throughout these years and a little background history. And it's full of exercises. One of the exercises is contemplating the sage. When you don't know what to do in a situation, think, okay, in this situation, what would Marcus Aurelius do?
Yes.
And it's a complete perspective shift because people think they don't know what to do. Most of the time, you do know what to do. You just don't want to admit it. Yeah.
It's the execution of it.
Yeah, exactly. So there are tons of really good exercises in there. There's actually a full section on getting over bad habits and addiction and things like that. So highly recommend How to Think Like a Roman Emperor by Donald Robertson.
Yeah, I recommend that. I think you have a great journaling curriculum for everybody out there who's looking for something maybe in addition to any kind of mental health assistance, knowing that this book can be extremely valuable. Obviously not when an acute crisis or anything, but when just wanting to explore yourself, look at things through the perspective of Stoicism and understanding your emotions, which allows you to plan for better behavior and understand yourself better. Beautiful stuff.
Because I just want to make a few more additional notes on Stoicism. Because it's basically like a blueprint for managing your emotions and optimizing basically your mindset for, an effective and efficient performance in all of life's avenues or venues.
Right.
Because it's extremely, the exercises provided in Stoicism are extremely practical. It's not like, why is the sky blue? What is blue? It's not like that. It's like, listen, are you feeling stressed out or angry right now? Listen, why don't you think about it like this? Try this little mental exercise. Imagine yourself zoomed out from Earth and see how small you are. Are your problems really that big of a deal?
Yes.
Things like that. And you're like, no, they're really not that big of a deal. Never mind. You think that dude spilling coffee on you at the coffee shop is a big deal? Why don't you zoom out and see how small Earth is and picture how small you are? Does that coffee really matter? No.
Absolutely.
So it provides these practical little exercises for everyday life situations. And that's why I think Stoicism is still reigning and still alive and making a complete resurgence in modern day. So even things like, meditating on your death. It's so powerful to
Memento
think about
mori.
that. Memento mori, exactly. Memento mori. Think about remember, you're going to die. Like think, you know, everyone has all these goals and wishes, what they want to do for their life, but that's what they say they want to do, but their actions say something different. I want this, but here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. I'm going out and partying every single weekend. All my time's being spent on social media, and I'm just watching TV all day. You know, these two things don't line up at all. So remembering that you're going to die, say, listen, I'm going to die one day. It could be next month, next year, 20 years from now, whatever it is. I'm going to die someday. If I really want this, this has to come up here so it aligns with that. It can't stay here. So it puts things in perspective to remember, listen, you're running out of time.
Right.
Whatever you're afraid to do, you want to go talk to that girl? You want to go make some more friends? You want to do all these things? You want to get in shape? Start moving. Live immediately. And I think there's a good quote from Seneca. It's either Seneca or Marcus Aurelius. Says, listen, the entire future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. Live immediately. And that's what I'm about, man.
There you go. You're reminding me of this awesome book that you may like called The Tools, 5 Tools to Help You Find Courage, Creativity, and Willpower. So it's by Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels. And
I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, for real. It's pretty easy to find on Amazon.
The Tools.
Yes, pretty simple name too. So it is all about different ways that you can jumpstart your motivation, and it's no nonsense. So it's like you said, it's not sky's blue kind of contemplative stuff.
Yeah. And funny you mentioned motivation. That's an interesting word.
Right.
Because most people feel they need to feel motivated. I have to feel motivated to go run, or I have to feel motivated to do something.
Right.
Sometimes doing something inspires you after you've done the action that you think you couldn't do. You do something, you take action, then you feel inspired and you feel motivated to do more. So it's like it's interesting when you think about it like that.
Yeah, it can be an inverse thing where I tell clients you have to act your way into feeling better often. You have to behave your way to a better mood versus thinking your way into one. You can't usually overthink your way out of a thinking problem. And it's a very, like when you see it logically, that the very thing, that the thing, your thoughts running rampant is the thing you're trying to solve with more thoughts. It doesn't make much sense. It's the behavior, it's doing something, whether it's taking pills, whether it's going and exercising, doing something new that helps to jog and jar you out of a pathological cycle. And most people, when they start to understand and consider that, will really get an aha moment.
Yeah, I tweeted something the other day. I was saying, listen, when you feel stressed out, maybe a little angry, maybe a little anxious, I want you to imagine what it would feel like to feel the opposite.
Yes.
What would it feel like when you begin to feel better? Describe it and try to imitate it.
Yes.
Say, I'll feel positive. I'll feel upbeat. I'll be smiling. I'll have good posture. I'll be breathing normally. Why don't you I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but try to imitate feeling the opposite. And most times people, when they do that, they automatically start to feel better. Magic, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's interesting.
Well, and so that's actually based on a therapeutic principle that goes all the way back to Adler. So Alfred Adler, one of Freud's acolytes who pissed Freud off by daring to be different. But he had this idea called acting as if. And so it's basically fake it till you make it. It's acting as if the problem isn't there. It's a very creative solution there. And the idea of doing the opposite. So with dialectical behavior therapy, which is this whole thing of like embracing opposites, embracing that you want to change, but you also accept yourself. I won't get into all that, but that's a whole modality to help with intense emotions. And one of the exercises is acting the opposite, doing a half smile when you're upset, or doing things that are contrary to how you're feeling, and really jump starting your brain into feeling the emotion that you're mimicking on the outside.
And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Say, listen, if you don't act as if it doesn't exist, and if you don't try to imitate the opposite emotion, you're validating that irrational fear or emotion. You're saying, yes, it does exist. Yes, it does exist. I have to run. I have to hide. And so say, listen, I'm going to try to feel like I'm fearless. I'm going to try to feel like I'm not anxious. I'm going to try to feel, maybe I'm just happy right now. And you just try to imitate the opposite emotion.
Right.
Instead of validating that irrational emotion that's not really appropriate for that situation.
Right. And I like when you said in your tweet, meeting new people was nerve wracking, but when meeting someone new, just imagine the person as an old friend.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're assuming goodwill, right?
Yeah.
So often we assume that others are going to be judgmental and be poor friends or something like that. We're coming from a defensive position, and from a defensive position,
Yeah.
posture, the compacted posture, not thinking openly and connecting ideas, is
Yeah.
constantly worrying about being judged. But when you reverse that and you think this person is essentially an old friend, you open yourself up to those enjoyable connections and conversations that you can only have when you're in an open mental framework.
Two things here. Yeah. When I help people, especially with coaching, I use a little bit of CBT when it comes down to social anxiety and these false beliefs they hold. You know, people say like, "Oh man, if I wear this or if I say that, if I approach this person, they're going to, they're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think I'm weird or ugly or fat, whatever it is."
Sure.
This irrational belief they created out of thin air.
Right.
I say, okay, well, where's the evidence that supports that?
Right.
Where is the evidence that supports this belief you held? Where is it?
Right.
Because if not, if you continue to believe that, if you don't challenge this belief, you're going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're going to act weird and you're going to act in these weird ways that cause these people to reinforce your own belief. So you're making these things happen. You're making these things. If you act, okay, man, they're not going to like me. I just know they're not going to like me. You're going to be off-putting. You're going to be acting a little strange. You're not going to be friendly and outgoing. And this person will say, man, this person's a little, they don't really seem like they want to talk to me. They seem like they want to be left alone. They seem mad. I want to avoid this person because they seem a little negative. Yes. And all you're doing is reinforcing your negative belief system, and it creates a little loop, and that continues. That's where CBT comes in and says, okay, listen, where's the evidence that supports this negative belief? Let's act like a lawyer. Let me prosecute myself. Let me see what's going on here. Let's act like a lawyer and say, okay, I'm going to present a case against my beliefs.
Right.
Let's see if there's any support for this. Where's the evidence to support it? There's none. There's none. So why don't I just go about my way and act like none of that exists and try to imitate the opposite? So,
right. And I think people have to, I want to play not devil's advocate, but expand the point a little bit here. You know, people can have real problems, and maybe there are some issues that others have laughed at or made fun of them for, or they have a weight problem and
totally
have things. And you can look at that and say, okay, look at who has been successful in spite of those things, for one thing. And let's look at what steps it takes to overcome whatever obstacle it is that you really think could be an issue socially. So it's that dual-pronged approach, at least, of let's accept ourselves now and move toward changing, because many people will get stuck in, they'll think it's too hard to work out, too hard to do this or that. And if you look at it as instantly losing a ton of weight, it is too hard. It's impossible, in fact. But is it impossible to go for a walk or a run or a jog today, one step at a time for 5 minutes? So maybe that turns into 15 minutes. That turns into 20. So you talk your way into it the same way you talk your way into procrastinating, like just one more YouTube video, right? How about just one more set, just a couple more reps? We don't use that positive addictive quality as much as we should.
So, I actually want to touch on something you said. You said, what if someone actually did laugh at them for being overweight, or they did judge them? They said, oh, he's stupid. Look at him. Okay, two things. One, why do you think – okay, so maybe it did happen to you. Let's accept that. Number two, now you're in a new situation. You're saying this moment is going to be – it's going to turn out the same way as it did in the past. Let's go back to CBT. Well, why do you think that? What evidence supports this person is going to behave the same way? You're literally saying these two people are the same. You're just saying they're going to act like this person did. Well, how do you know that? We have to challenge this thing. We have to ask ourselves questions. You know, there's a good quote. It's the quality of our questions determine the quality of our life.
I like that.
And number two is that, okay, so say you're thinking about being a judge. You're thinking about you're going to fail in the situation. Let's think about times you've been in similar situations and you've won before. Let's think about the small wins we've had before. Okay, you're about to public speak. Okay, and you think you're going to fail. Cool, fair enough. So how about before? Have you gotten up to public speak before, or publicly speak before, and you did a good job? Or how about, have you even gotten up before and gotten to the stand? Because that's a win. Even just getting up and getting in front of the room, that is a win. So right now, I need you to think about that. Okay, I've been here before. I've gotten up in front of these people before. I've done it before. Let's think about the small wins. Let's do it again. If we did it before, we could do it again. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it again.
Booyah. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. That's it. It's all about building on the small wins. You and Armani and a lot of the Twitter guys that just get it, who just get that it's important to focus on small steps.
Well,
yeah.
And this is important because small wins actually have happened. A projection of what if never happened. It never happened. You thinking, I'm going to fail again. This situation is completely unique than any previous situation. There are new people in here. It's a new day. It's a new year. It's a new situation. So to say, okay, it might go terribly. It might go awfully. Well, it's not a real situation. It's not real. It's a what if projection. But the small wins are real. You've done them. You can look back on them and say, listen, I've done this before. I can do it again. Forget the what if. Forget about the future. What problem am I facing right now? I have to get up and talk. I'm not worried about 10 minutes from now. If I faint 10 minutes from now, cool. I'm going to faint 10 minutes from now, whatever. I'm going to talk for the next 10 minutes and then I'll faint, whatever. So things like that. Like there has to be some sort of degree of acceptance of that moment. What you resist persists. And if you're constantly resisting that negative energy in that moment, say, I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel anxious. Oh, you're going to feel anxious. You can't you don't run faster than these negative emotions. You don't run faster than your fears. You don't run faster than the anxiety. So instead of running away and trying to outbeat them, I could beat them. I got to run away. Turn around and say, okay, anxiety's here. Cool. We're going to talk anyway, though. It's all good. It's like, I'm scared. I'm scared to get up and talk.
Right.
I'm going to talk anyway.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yep.
So things like that.
I can't tell you how many clients I've had this conversation with because the fear of what if is so potent, and the way through it. I mean, I tell people to treat their negative intrusive thoughts like they would a friend who thrives off of drama and end off negative attention, right? So you ignore that person, you acknowledge them, and then you put it out. You don't live in fear of them because you're giving that mental bandwidth, and you don't indulge them because they thrive on giving you more and more drama. Instead, you kind of ignore them like that, like someone who is a stalker, or someone who is now obviously suicidal or homicidal ideation is different. And that's the clinician making that disclaimer. But for most negative intrusive thoughts, they're just kind of annoying friends or these annoying entities that we kind of say, okay, yeah, thank you. That's just a thought. I'm going to move on now. And you go forward in spite of, rather than giving them the power to tell you what to do, or fearing them, because then you're changing your life to avoid basically an annoying person you don't want to run into. And there's people do that, right? And when you look at it that way and you personalize it, it can give a different, more concrete way of viewing it. Yeah,
and a lot of the problem stems from identifying with these thoughts and attaching a lot of meaning to them.
Fusion. You're fusing with your thoughts. It's the view you are not your thoughts. In the inverse, it's what many people do who have overthinking issues. It's they really fuse with their thoughts and think that they're just inevitably true.
Yeah. And a lot of this, we're going back to Stoicism and psychotherapy again here, because we're going to say, listen, the event itself, getting up to publicly speak, going to the gym for the first time, these are events. They are neutral. They have no meaning. The problems, the emotions flow, the negative emotions flow the minute you attach meaning to them. The minute you interpret them as negative. That's when the emotions start to flow and they start to influence your behavior and actions. And then going from there, that creates habit and creates new loops, whether it's negative or positive. So if you're sitting there and saying, listen, and I love this exercise from Marcus Aurelius. It's called depreciation by analysis. And he says, listen, well, he didn't say depreciation by analysis, but you know what I'm saying. So it's the process. So you say, listen, okay, you break down the actual event into its physical components. Rather than saying, this is bad, I had to publicly speak, this is terrible. You're saying, listen, screw all the attachment and meaning, screw the interpretation. What we're going to say here is, listen, there are people here. There are desks. We're in a room. It's daytime. It's, 8 a.m. I have to get up. I have to walk in front of a room and just talk to people. There's nothing else. I'm just breaking everything down into its physical components and just describing the event. I'm not adding any meaning. I'm not adding any emotions. I'm just describing the event. And he does it like when he's trying to control himself, or discipline himself, when he's not trying to become too infatuated with a fancy meal. He says, listen, and everyone's gorging themselves, throwing up in the vomitorium and stuff like that. He's saying, listen, this is a dead bird. There are some vegetables from out back, a few spices. It's the whole idea, like Napoleon Bonaparte. He's like, a king's throne is just a wooden bench with velvet over it. No big deal. It's the same concept. Dead bird, some vegetables from out back, and some, dried up grapes, grape juice. That's it. There's nothing special. I'm not saying this is a fancy meal. It's great. It's all this. He's saying, listen, it's just a dead animal and some vegetables. He's not attaching any emotion to it. He's not interpreting it as like this great thing and letting emotion fuel it. He's simply describing and depreciating it, simply depreciation by analysis.
And where do you get that term? I like it.
Depreciation by analysis?
Yes.
It's a psychoanalytical term used by Donald Robertson.
Okay.
Depreciation. Now, that's the first time I heard it was from him saying it. The common Stoic exercise, but he says it a lot.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it really comes down to when you talk about viewing it stuff in the present, not judging it. It's a descriptive form of mindfulness. So part of DBT is part of the core mindfulness module is descriptive tools, descriptive orientation, and explaining. You have to be able to describe something though. What is it? It's neither good nor bad. It just is.
Yes.
So I like where that's going. And sometimes if you have to depreciate a little bit to help you to take away, to pare down that narcissistic attachment to whatever object it is, boom, do it. You gotta know which way to go. It's like some mental alchemy there. If you tend to idealize things and you're afraid because the audience is so very prestigious, then it comes down to a variation on that rather classless exercise of imagining people in their underwear. It's the operational principle behind it, though, of these are people, what I have to say matters, or I'm going to speak, and it just is. Or if you have to say, they're no better than I am. So things like that. I get where you're going. It's pretty cool.
And it's a form of mindfulness if you think about it, when you're just describing events and things into its physical pieces.
Yes.
I mean, it's pure mindfulness.
It is.
You're being fully present in order to describe these things. There's no anxious thoughts happening. It's not possible to think, what if I'm saying, listen, Jeremy, I'm here. I'm talking right now. I'm on a computer. I'm looking at you on a screen. There's a green dot next to my camera. It's not possible to think about a what if situation at that point. And that's where presence and mindfulness comes in.
Absolutely.
It's funny that you mentioned like looking at people in the audience in their underwear. What I tell people to do, and it's a form of depreciation, I guess you could say, but it's important. I say, listen, don't put anyone on a pedestal, because when you put people on a pedestal, you lower yourself down.
You do.
Now you're below them. You're looking up at them. They're looking down at you. And a way of avoiding that is whenever you're meeting someone that you feel is superior to you, or you feel inferior to them, maybe they have more status, whatever it might be, you try to think about them when they're in their house. They're going to the bathroom. They're eating dinner and they're spilling spaghetti all over their shirt. They're snoring and there's drool falling out of their mouth. Maybe they peed themselves or something.
You're going in hard, Paul.
Oh, I do. But you think about, like, they're just normal, living, breathing human beings just like you, and they spill pizza on themselves, and they're snoring and drooling and other things. So stop putting up here and acting like they're God. It's just like, listen, think about that for a second, dude. No big deal.
On that note, I am going to probably link to some studies that show the effectiveness of therapeutic journaling, because don't just take our word for it, listeners. There are so many studies that demonstrate that journaling is helpful in emotional regulation.
It is.
In grad school, they teach us that. Even in undergraduate programs back in the day when I was getting my 4-year degree, I'm sure they do it even more now, but we were taught the morals and the merits, I should say, of journaling, and how important it is as a process of writing out your thoughts and ambitions. And it's the cathartic aspect, the completion that comes along with writing something down that happened. I mean, it's even been shown to be helpful with trauma. That's where I'm going there with that.
Writing about the event, writing about it, trying to understand it, writing it out.
Absolutely.
And it's a form of visualization as well with the writing. So you're revisiting it, and it's painful in the moment, but in the long run, you do desensitize yourself to that event, and you start to accept it. So it's powerful stuff. I will give a quick action writing tip from the journaling ebook.
Please.
A writing exercise that helps with trauma and previous issues that you may have been dealing with or current, whatever. So it's basically, it's a dialogue exercise that you're going to have with your inner wise self. And this person is, we'll call this person the future self. It's the person that you wish to become within 10 years, let's say, or the person you see yourself as like the superhero figure in the future, who got over their anxieties, who conquered their mind, has a great social life, or whatever the hell they want to be.
Right.
They're that in the future. Okay. Now you're going to have a dialogue with that person. So you're going to address them as the future self. You're the past self. Now, whatever situation you're dealing with or you need advice for, whether it's problem solving, whatever it might be, you're going to have a dialogue, and you're going to be the past self, and you're going to write at it, and you're going to say, listen, future self, I'm having some issues with this right now. I'm feeling anxious in a classroom. I've been dealing with depression the past 10 days or whatever it might be. I got into a fight with my parents. I broke up with my girlfriend. Whatever it is, you're going to say, future self, I need help with this. What would you, if you're looking back, what would you have done in my situation to overcome it? What would you do? Or what advice would you give me to deal with the situation? And then you act, now you act like your future self, and you give yourself an answer. You imagine you're your future self who overcame all these things because they were you, because you're the past self. And you say, listen, Jeremy, I know you're dealing with some anxiety right now. I know you're dealing with this right now. This is what I would tell you to do because I overcame it. Here's what you need to do. You need to go face your anxiety. You need to confront it. Stop running from it. You got to accept it. You're okay. So you have this dialogue with who you want to be, and then you act like who you will be, and you address your problems real time. It's mind blowing. It's completely mind blowing. But you realize after doing it over and over again, you're stronger than you really think you are, because once you dive deep and use that perspective shift and that visualization technique, you realize, listen, I do have a lot of these answers that I need. I really do. I'm not as dumb as I think I am. I'm not as weak as I think I am. I have these answers. And if that's who I want to be, they're giving me advice right now. It's a little weird, but it's cool. Like it's seriously cool. And it doesn't have to be your inner wise self. You could ask whoever you want, but just for that exercise, you can try that out. And that's one of the exercises in the book, is contemplating your inner wise self, asking them questions.
That reminds me, the whole reason I thought of the book, The Tools, is because there's an exercise in there called Jeopardy, in which the person imagines like they're speaking to their self on their deathbed, and that older self is commanding them to live. And it's very macabre. I think that's like a little too grotesque. I mean, that would distract people. But it's a great book. It's a great book. I'm thinking in terms of like people who already have anxiety disorder.
The exercise is called Jeopardy, and you just consult with Alex Trebek.
That would be great.
Can you imagine?
There's a new meaning to that now that he's overcome the pancreatic cancer, right? I mean, that's yeah. No, I love that exercise you're talking about. So the listeners, I'm going to make sure to put that in the description to listen for a special exercise, because that's awesome. That's very
contemplating the inner wise self.
Yes, I love it. Consulting the inner wise self, guys. Beautiful. Yes. So we covered a lot. There was a lot of great stuff. I want to urge people one more time to look at and really consider purchasing the Path to Journaling ebook. That's what it's called, right? I'm looking at it here.
You can get on my Twitter.
Yes, find it with Paul Domenick. I'm going to obviously link to his Twitter handle in the description of the podcast, and when I share the tweet with the podcast in it. Anything you want to add here in closing? This has been such an action-packed, little over an hour session here.
Yeah, I think I have some action steps people can take every day to better their life.
Booyah! All right.
Number one, try to start being more present and mindful. When you're doing dishes, don't be thinking about anything else. Just see the dishes not as like a means to an end, but as an end itself. Try to feel the water. Try to feel the texture of the dish, the water going through your fingers. Try to be more present all throughout the day. When you're on your work, feel your steering wheel. Feel the texture of it. Try to feel your butt in the seat and your foot pushing the pedal, and notice the trees. Try to be more mindful throughout the day, more present, and retreat from that what if mindset, or ruminating over the past and things like that. And you'll be much happier being in the present moment. Number two, I would tell people to start pushing past their perceived comfort zone and testing their little bubble of comfort every day, whatever it is. If you're a writer, or if you want to be a writer, write an extra page today, write an extra paragraph, or draft 20 more tweets, or write 20 more tweets. Do an extra stand on the bench. Run an extra mile. Whatever it is, just push a little bit further than what you're usually accustomed to doing. Number 3, I would say questioning your negative thoughts you have throughout the day. Let's start questioning those. You say, oh man, I'm pissed off about this. Okay, say, why am I pissed off? Ask yourself, why are you pissed off? Are you really pissed off? Or why are you saying that? Is it really that big of a deal? So start questioning these negative thoughts and beliefs you have throughout the day, and ask yourself, where is the evidence to support this negative belief I'm holding right now? Where is it? Why should I feel this way? Is there a more beneficial way to feel? Is there a more productive way to feel? Is this really going to help me if I continue to feel like this and keep believing this and keep holding on to this negative mindset? Number 4, I want to say visualize. You need to see yourself winning in your head before you expect to see it externally. I want you to see yourself winning. And this comes down to your self-image. Do you see yourself as the person that's capable of achieving all the things you want to achieve? If you cannot see that, you will not achieve that because, like I said, you're going to create that self-fulfilling prophecy that reinforces the idea that you're not the person that can do those things. And it sounds a little hokey at first when you say, see it to succeed in all those things. But listen, you need to listen. Basketball players, baseball players, they visualize themselves shooting free throws, hitting 3-point pointers, visualizing the game, things like that, hitting baseballs. They see themselves doing it over and over again. You need to do the same thing. It could be visualizing yourself running the extra mile today, picturing it, seeing, maybe visualizing potential obstacles along your race or while you're in the gym or, throughout the day and picture overcoming them. Visualize winning constantly. And this goes hand in hand with changing the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of.
Right.
And a good writing exercise for this would be, why don't you ask yourself, who am I? Let's start there. Who am I? Who am I, and what beliefs do I hold about myself and my capabilities? What can I do? What can I do? Why can't I do it? And why don't you investigate that a little further? So really think about the stories you tell yourself, especially when you want to try something new. You say, oh man, I can't do that. Or I can't learn a new language. Write a nice little why with a question mark under that. Why can't you do it? Really? And listen, maybe you're going to roast yourself. You're going to say, you're an idiot, you're this and that. Okay, whatever. But I don't think you're going to say that. Because most of the time, you don't. So really ask why, challenge the stories you tell about yourself, and always investigate the meanings you attach to things.
Absolutely.
Investigate the meanings. You say, oh, this sucks that the Phillies lost that game. This is terrible. Well, you saying that, you're going to make yourself feel terrible. You're going to influence your emotions, and that's going to change your behavior. And that might affect your relationships with other people and even just with yourself.
Right.
So try to think about the meaning you're attaching to things, to events.
Right.
And if you can, try to see things more neutrally.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. I think I would end with that.
What?
I would end with that. Would probably be my actionable steps for the everyday.
No, those are great, Paul. Thank you. The big theme there being mindfulness and catching yourself before you add a judgment to things. Instead, trying to see things as objectively and presently as possible.
Yeah, and I have a good quote to end with on my part.
Let's do it.
By Marcus Aurelius. And he says, not to assume it's impossible because you find it difficult, but to recognize that if it's humanly possible, you can do it too.
Beautiful. All right. This has been the Fox Den Podcast with Paul Domenick.